LED panels, full HD to Ultra HD, and now the experience of Super Ultra HD. Visit our theater rooms and transform your home with brands like Onkyo, Integra, Denon, Boston Acoustics, Yamaha, and more for quality audio-visual experience. Now available, full range of home appliances. A one-stop shopping experience. Call 031 306 4029 or Kenilworth Park, 202 Brickfield Road, Overport. Simplex Radio, the name you can trust.
Own your crown this Women's Day, 9th August with Al Ansar Foundation. An unforgettable day with the dynamic Sakura and Sarmia, the multi-talented Rabia Carvalho, the energetic Fahima Asmal, and your favorite Radio Al Ansar presenters. A crowned event awaits you. Tickets 250 Rand. Call outreach now. Dress up, show up. Own your crown this Women's Day, 9th August with Al Ansar Foundation.
This segment is brought to you by Kenfield Auto, your RMI approved service and repair specialist. 236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Kenfield Auto.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. ربنا اصرف عنا عذاب جهنم إن عذابها كان غراما إنها ساءت مستقرا ومقاما.
Car won't start.
Kenfield Auto.
Noisy brakes.
Kenfield Auto.
Due for a service.
Kenfield Auto. Kenfield Auto, the answer to all your car problems. Your service and repair specialist for your VW, Audi, Suzuki, Toyota, or just about any vehicle. Kenfield Auto, your RMI and insurance approved workshop to handle them all. 236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Call us on 031 207 2399. Kenfield Auto.
Ladies, are you or a loved one diagnosed with cancer, or are you on treatment, or are you a cancer survivor? Then the Al Ansar Cancer Support Group is for you. Join us once a month and be a part of a supportive group of ladies to simply chat, discuss challenges, and be motivated by our guest speakers. Contact Rubina Parak on 082-786-8815 or Zora Jadwat on 082-220-3131 for more information. No one should face cancer alone.
Ya Rasool Allah, Ya Habib Allah, Aka, 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 Aka. Aka, 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 फिर के गली गली तबाह ठोकर सब की खाए क्यों दिल को जो अक्ल दे खुदा तेरी गली से जाए क्यों रुखसत काफिला कशान गश से हमें उठाए क्यों रुखसत से काफिला कशान गश से हमें उठाए क्यों सोते हैं उनके साए में सोते हैं उनके साए में कोई हमें जगाए क्यों फिर के दिल को जो अक्ल दे खुदा तेरी गली से जाए क्यों यादें हुजूर की कसम गफलत ऐश है ستم یاد حضور کی قسم غفلت عیش ہے ستم خوب ہے قید غم میں غم خوب ہے قید غم میں غم کوئی ہمیں چھڑائے کیوں یا رسول اللہ یا رسول اللہ یا رسول اللہ یا حبیب وہ جو نہ تھے تو کچھ نہ تھا وہ جو نہ ہو تو کچھ نہ ہو وہ جو نہ تھے تو کچھ نہ تھا وہ جو نہ ہو تو کچھ نہ ہو جان ہے وہ جہان کی جان ہے وہ جہان کی جان ہے تو جہان ہے آقا گلی آقا کی کھاکا کیوں دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں ہاں جان ہے عشق مصطفیٰ روز فضوں کرے خدا جان ہے عشق مصطفیٰ روز فضوں کرے خدا جس کو درد کا مزہ جس کو درد کا مزہ سانسے دوا اٹھائے کیوں پھر کے دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں ہے تو رضا نرا ستم جرم پہ گئے لجائے ہم ہے تو رضا نرا ستم جرم پہ گئے لجائے ہم کوئی بجائے سو سے غم کوئی بجائے سو سے غم سازے طرب بجائے کیوں یا رسول اللہ یا رسول اللہ یا رسول اللہ یا حبیب اللہ.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to News in Focus Live on Radio Al Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency W90.4 FM, Peter Masberg 105.6 FM, and audio streaming on www.alansar.org.za. And by the way, I'm sure you may have read articles that the Radio Al Ansar has come third in one of the best radio stations in KZN. That award was made today, and you'll find that on Instagram. So obviously we're doing something good that our listeners are sort of voting us, and alhamdulillah, we continue to provide very important information and news to our listeners out there. The subject for tonight is around Mkhwanazi's inquest and an update thereof. The second one is MK files a motion of no confidence on Ramaphosa and the status report on functioning of the GNU. With me in the studio, I have Sameul Kennedy, political analyst, ex-councillor, and a politician as well. Hassen Motala will be joining us shortly. And Honorable Imran Subrathie MP, he's at the moment in Parliament voting on the budget. Now, just to pick up on the Mkhwanazi issue, we know that General Mkhwanazi made a lot of allegations, on various issues relating to security in South Africa, a few weeks ago, and there was a response from the president where he asked the Minister of Police to go on special leave, and he appointed Gwede Mantashe, as the acting Minister of Police for a couple of weeks, whereafter Feroz Kachalia will be appointed as the acting Minister of Police until this inquest is finalized. The Portfolio Committee on Police and the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Constitutional Development are holding a joint meeting to consider the draft report on the request to investigate allegations made by KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Reports coming through that he's been frustrated about the crime in the country, the cover-up of certain criminal offences that are taking place, and the state of the police force in South Africa. So he wants action, and the committees will decide on the appropriate approach to take and then submit the recommendations for consideration by the National Assembly. Now, as a result of this, the MK, has come into the fore, and they obviously has officially requested a motion of no confidence against President Cyril Ramaphosa. The irony of it all is that MK is the stepchild or the child of the ANC. A lot of them, starting with the leader Zuma and others, were strong ANC members. And because there were investigations on many of them from the Zondo Commission, they decided to skip and form a new party. And believe me, they sort of won a lot of votes and seats in the last provincial and national elections. And they're hoping they can do quite well in the municipal elections. So they're a threat to the ruling party and indeed other parties. Now, there's a letter that was sent to the National Assembly Speaker. The party cites a range of concerns from rising crime and economic mismanagement to national security failures. So obviously the DA was threatening this in the past, but Steenhuisen has responded accordingly. The motion also claims that Ramaphosa's leadership has eroded public trust and allowed the state to steadily unravel. It calls for an urgent special sitting of Parliament within 2 weeks to debate and vote on the motion. The MKP insists the motion is not politically motivated, but is necessary to restore stability and accountability. Now, we know clearly that if the DA supports the motion, then Ramaphosa will be removed. But we'll get Samuel's comments. Then further, on the issue of the status report and the functioning of the GNU, we've been chatting about it, and it's been flowing, ebb and flow. There's been disputes, but they're hanging in there. And economically, there's been a good reaction. Now, Cyril Ramaphosa cracked the whip in order to save his budget. The DA said it will support this week's appropriation bill following the president's decision to dismiss Higher Education Minister Nobushle Nkaban after sustained DA pressure. Now, we know this particular minister may not have delivered, allowed problems to emanate in the higher education sector. And he then decided that the DA mentioned that they would not support the budget of corrupt ministers and had pointed to Nkaban and to Thembi Simelane, the current Minister of Housing. This is why housing is at its all-time low, Simelane remains in a post, but the DA decided to support the budget anyway. Nevertheless, the DA also gave a veiled reference to further action, saying that this must be the beginning and not the end of action against corruption. So they want to root out corruption, and in case that some of the DA ministers are really acting quite strictly. Now, that wasn't the only dismissal. The DA has also been pushing for the sacking of South Gauteng NPA Director General Andrew Chauke, and Ramaphosa fired him too as well. Chauke was appointed by former President Zuma, and the DA said he protected the corrupt and delayed cases against state capture. So it said that he protected murder-accused former crime intelligence head Richard Mkhwanazi and shielded the former president's son Edward Zuma from being prosecuted for corruption. So the DA demanded that Eskom's board and executives appear before Parliament to account for a R1 billion loss incurred during the project to replace Coburg steam generators. So there's corruption out there. Eskom did not prepare properly for the 2022 project to be conducted by the French nuclear company Framatome. Eskom blamed Framatome and refused to engage with the adjudicator in good faith. That decision has now cost R1 billion, and money could have gone to fixing our failing grid or easing load reduction. So there's a lot of things happening to which the DA is holding, the president and the ANC accountable. Now, the question that arose, and it's of interest to note, that John Steenhuisen, he's the leader of the DA in the GNU, he's weighed in on MK's threats against President Ramaphosa, that is, when they filed the motion of no confidence. He believes that the MK party is the last party to talk about good governance. That's his first statement. Secondly, he says South Africans took to social media to share their thoughts on Steenhuisen defending the president. Now, Steenhuisen is saying that he was asked whether the DA would support MK party in a motion of no confidence. He said that it would be rather odd for the DA to be part of government, but then to be part of bringing down the government. Ironically, the DA has recently threatened to file its own motion if Ramaphosa didn't take action against African National Congress ministers accused of corruption. So from the sort of decisions taken, Ramaphosa is giving in to the pressure. But is the pressure really improving our situation in South Africa, improving service delivery that we've been talking about, and ensuring that corrupt people are taken to task? So with me, I have in the studio Sameul Kennedy, who loved the nasheed that we played after the break. And he said that, it's really a nice one. And I think a lot of our listeners love that nasheed. Sameul, good evening and welcome to News in Focus live on Radio Al-Ansar International.
Thank you, Yunus, and good evening to the listeners on a nice, nippy Wednesday evening. Thank you very much for the invite again, and I think it'll be a good show. Thanks for the nishad. It was quite good. I enjoyed it.
Okay. Now, Sameul, I went through a couple of different scenarios regarding Mkhwanazi. On the one side, there's an inquest, there's an acting Minister of Police. He's demanding certain action. He's supposedly a straight guy. The ANC is responding and saying, we can't find somebody guilty until we investigate both sides of the sort of situation. When an allegation is made, you'll have to find out the other party's view and then have an informed decision by an independent inquiry. So that is expected to take 6 months. Meanwhile, there are allegations that the police force is going from bad to worse. Crime is going at the worst levels as possible. And what do we do in the interim? Will Gwede Mantashe do something? Will Feroz Kachala do something? Those are the questions that are coming up with that issue. Then MK is coming in opportunistically and wanting to do a no confidence. And the DA is saying, no way, they're going to support it. So the GNU might be able to protect the president from this motion of no confidence. And then the GA obviously is saying that the DA is actually saying that the GNU is functioning effectively. Both the parties are meeting each other. So perhaps you want to comment on these three scenarios. Firstly, with the Mkhwanazi issue, you've got about 12 minutes. And in between, I will ask a few questions. And then the issue of the motion of no confidence. And then the GNU, is it really functioning effectively? So you've got a bit of time, maybe 4 minutes each to cover the different aspects. And then we'll continue after the news break.
Let's start from sort of the last statement to the first, and that is
the functioning of the GNU.
Is the GNU, well, former President Jacob Zuma has taken the pronouncement or the pronunciation or the statement of GNU to court. I think it's sitting at the Supreme Court of Appeal. The question is it a GNU or is it a coalition government? In terms of legal jurisprudence, it's not a government of national unity. It's a government of coalition.
That's Zuma's argument.
That's Zuma's argument, but he's correct. Because if you look at the constitution of 1994, that was crafted in 1990, leading up to the first 5 years of the first government, the government of national unity is a government that is formed only in the event of a crisis.
So there's no voting taking place as such. It was basically just the different parties got together and formed a government.
That's why they coalesce.
Right.
That's where you get the word coalition from. So it's a coalesce of different political groupings with maybe not the same ideology, but their intent or their motive was to keep the MK party out. And most of them have what we call crossover funders. So you'll find that most of the funders are funding most of them.
Crossover members and funders.
Yeah. So because the MK is a very strong, at the time, Africanist. So the strategy was the ANC dropped to 40. They don't have a majority. They need 51.
So when they moved across, they took their support as well.
Who?
The MK.
Yeah. Now I'll read you the number, right? I'll read you the number, and these are the numbers. 2019, the ANC had 230 seats at 57%. 2024, the ANC went down to 159, 40%. The DA went from 84 to 87. The EFF went from 44 to 58. Okay? In 2024. Now, I think these are combinations of both what the old Senate, which is now the NCOP. MK went from 0 to 58%, 58 seats, which is 14%. In fact, my apologies, the EFF went from 44 to 39. So the EFF was the MK was the biggest winner in these elections of 2024. So nobody's got a majority. In order for any one party to govern, it's impossible. So what you got to do, you got to juggle. You got to try and find what we call a happy medium.
So they call it a government of national unity because there were various other parties that joined.
Well, it's a let's rephrase it. It's an expression. It's a government of national unity. It's syntax. I mean, who cares whether it's a government of representativity, government of unity?
So the ANC, obviously, when they took the decision, they were not the majority, but in the GNU, they will be the majority, and this is why they call it kind of calling the shots, but the DA is nudging them every now so often to ensure that, they deal with challenges that the government have been facing.
Let's put it to you this way. So this is what listeners are eager, or listeners have an appetite for. Because politics is a very liquid, evolving, dynamic, and has a lot of people like the robustness to it, because by its nature, it's not conflict, but it's confrontative. In other words, it has that. It's all about views, one ideology to another. Who's better? Who's not?
And it is important. What we're doing today is to assess the performance of the GNU,
Absolutely.
the functioning, to work out, are they surviving and are they having a difference in people's lives and in terms of the economic setup. Is the economy improving? Because obviously the West is watching how the GNU performs, particularly with recent reports coming through from USA where Trump is saying that he's threatening to take action or sanctions against certain ANC ministers who made some adverse comments. And obviously South Africa's support, that is another subject for another day.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at, we've got 2 minutes just before we have a break and then we'll continue with the discussion, is that Zuma challenged, and how far has that gone?
Can I just conclude in a few utterances on the issue of what is purportedly this GNU? Firstly, there is no stability economically. More companies will be closing. We ain't seen nothing yet. There's a statement put out by the Reserve Bank governor that interest rates will increase, right? So interest rates are on the horizon. Two, the tariffs instituted by Donald J. Trump will kick in from the 1st of August, which is next week. Mercedes-Benz is on the verge of closure because they were reliant on the American automotive. Obviously, the Eastern Cape was reliant on imports or exports to the States. Two, we were exporting just citrus alone out of the Western Cape. We were exporting about 1.8 billion rand. That economy is going to hemorrhage. Three, we export huge amounts of steel, in particular aluminium, out of Pietermaritzburg to the US. That's where Tongaat Hewlett used to make its money. And every time the rand slid, more money came in, and these guys made more money out of exchange more than out of productivity. So South Africa is in a quagmire, and we're heading for very, very rocky road ahead, very rough waters.
Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a break for the news. But before I take the break, I want to leave a couple of questions for our listeners to ponder over, to which our guests in the studio will respond to. Is there an alternative to the GNU? Because obviously Zuma is raising issues. Tariffs 1st August increase. Is it because of the GNU? Is it because of other reasons? Economic impact. We're going to have our economist coming in, and let's hear his views. But Stian Hazen, what did he say about the party? He says the leader delivered us the 9 wasted years that we are currently trying to clean the mess up from. So that leader now is commenting on something that he caused. So inshallah, after the news break, we'll continue with this discussion. I'm sure we'll have some interesting comments from our economists. So we'll take a break for the news, and we'll join in again after the news, inshallah.
Thank you. I'm trying to wind the people up.
An informative Islamic global perspective. This is Al-Ansar News.
Making news this hour, 23rd of July. The news from Durban, 90.4 FM, Pietermaritzburg, 105.6 FM. KwaZulu-Natal super yacht deal promises jobs and skills boosts for the youth. America Monina. The Public Servants Association says it is opening a new multi-million rand yacht manufacturing deal will open up opportunities for unemployed youth in the province. The provincial government and an Italian company signed the agreement last week. Under the deal, a super yacht manufacturing hub will be established, which will allow the province to export luxury vehicles in the future. The 500 million rand project or investment includes upgrades to the ports of Durban and Richards Bay to create super yacht repair and refit centers. It is also expected to create thousands of jobs in areas such as shipbuilding, marine engineering, and coastal tourism, with training provided by local tertiary institutions, including UKZN and the Durban University of Technology and the Transnet Maritime School. More news now. Several KwaZulu-Natal schools damaged by strong winds are still in the same condition. This is resulting in overcrowding affecting teaching and learning. The Provincial Education Department faces significant financial challenges in rebuilding schools. KwaZulu-Natal Education MEC Paul Shlomoga is waiting in.
Disaster, we are working with the disaster management team, which is chaired by Cocta, and as the Department of Education, we sit in that and we plan and and we are working with all municipalities. We have plans in place in case there are schools that might be affected by disaster. We are going to deal with that. We are also working with national, and we are certain that there will be no school that will be, even if it's be affected, but we'll try our level best to ensure that it's not teaching and learning is not affected or not disrupted.
More news now. Former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo says he has little confidence in the Hawks and believes South Africa cannot win the fight against corruption without a capable and effective police force. Zondo had been speaking at the South African Council of Churches National Anti-Corruption Conference in Johannesburg. He warns that corruption has become so widespread that in some respects the country has regressed from where it was before democracy 30 years ago. Zondo says the disbanding of the elite crime-fighting unit, the Scorpions, has allowed criminality to flourish with devastating consequences for ordinary South Africans. The retired justice says that the country has waged the fight against corruption for over 30 years with no success in reducing the scourge. Finally, tensions between Washington and Pretoria continue to simmer as United States lawmakers pursue or pushes forward legislation that could significantly alter diplomatic relations between the two countries. Republican Congressman Ronnie Jackson has confirmed that his proposed U.S.-South Africa Bilateral Relations Review Act of 2025 has passed through the House. The House's Foreign Affairs Committee, clearing its first major hurdle in Congress. The legislation is now awaiting a full House vote, which is only expected after lawmakers return from recess in September. However, Brian Mast is the U.S. Foreign Affairs Committee chair. He has this to say on U.S.-South Africa relations.
I want to voice my strong support for H.R. 2633, the U.S.-South Africa Bilateral Relations Review Act. This is a targeted and overdue response to troubling shifts in South Africa's foreign policy under the African National Congress. Let me be clear that this bill is not anti-South Africa. It is pro-accountability. For too long, we've watched a key partner drift closer to authoritarian regimes, conducting joint military drills with Russia, strengthening economic and cybersecurity ties with the Kremlin and Beijing, and aligning with efforts to de-dollarize the global economy. These actions raise serious questions about the ANC's alignment with the democratic values and U.S. interests.
Yeah, whether it's 21 degrees, a quick reminder of our top story. Public Servant Association says it is opening a new multi-million rands yacht manufacturing deal will open up opportunities for unemployed youth in the province KwaZulu-Natal. That's
needs your support more than ever. Homes have been shattered and families have lost everything. With your support, our teams are delivering clean water tankers, feeding the hungry and assisting orphans who have no one left. Let us give Gaza whatever help we can. African Muslims Agency, empowering, educating, inspiring.
Give warmth this winter. Al-Ansar Outreach invites you to donate gently worn clothes and kurtas for boys, girls, women, and men. Items will be distributed to madrasas, old age homes, and communities in need. Drop off at 207 West Road, Overport, or call 031-208-1601 to make a difference today. Your kindness can change lives.
Durban, get ready for the event of the season. The Sultan Bahu Family Fete is happening from August 7th through 10th, from 10 a.m. to midnight. Experience a whirlwind of fun, thrilling rides at the Grand Fun Fair, side-splitting comedy, captivating Kavali, delicious food from diverse vendors, incredible shopping finds, and awesome giveaways. This isn't just fun, it's healing hearts. Don't miss the Sultan Bahu Family Fete, where joy meets generosity. For inquiries, call Tasneem on 081-836-2888. The Sultan Bahu Family Fete, a fate with purpose. Sultan Bahu is a registered NPO and PBO.
Welcome to Simplex Radio. Visit our showroom for the full range of car audio. Our TV department carries top brands with quality LED panels, full HD to Ultra HD, and now the experience of Super Ultra HD. Visit our theater rooms and transform your home with brands like Onkyo, Integra, Denon, Boston Acoustics, Yamaha, and more for quality audio visual experience. Now available, full range of home appliances. A one-stop shopping experience. Call 031 306 4029 or Kenilworth Park, 202 Brickfield Road, Overport. Simplex Radio, the name you can trust.
Elevate your style with Al-Noor kurtas and fragrances from Potent Eyes Perfumes, exclusively available at Al-Ansar shop. Visit us at 207 West Road or call 031-208-1601. Experience the best in fashion and perfumery. Al-Ansar shop where elegance meets fragrance.
When you give water, you're reaching out to drought-affected areas, bringing them to life. Fresh water to drink, to clean, and to grow. That's the power of water. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
We are friends, we are sisters, we are mothers, we are warriors in heels.
We wipe tears, wear smiles, and still wear the crown.
This Women's Day, own your crown with the Al-Ansar Foundation.
A celebration of bold hearts and beautiful souls.
The 9th of August, 189 West Road.
Tickets 250 Rand at the Al-Ansar shop.
Own your crown.
Because queens don't wait. Call Outreach now for more information on 031 208 1601.
Allah, 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 Allah. Radio Al-Ansar.
تنہا ہوں میں اور انتہا لاکھوں تنے ہیں سامنے بیٹھا ہوں میں مایوس کن آئے نہ کوئی مجھے تھامنے اللہ اللہ تو میری سن لے صدا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير مایوب ہوں تیرا کرم کرتا رکھا عزت بھی دی بڑھ کے دیا اوقات سے دولت بھی طاقت بھی اور وقت بھی کر دے خطا ہر معاف تو فہرست اسیاں کو چھوڑ دے اللہ اللہ تو میری سن لے صدا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير رنگینیوں خود غرضیوں میں ہے گزاری یہ عمر ہے آرزو بس ایک یہی کر دوں تیرے نام شام و سحر تسکین دل حاصل کروں رخ اپنی جانب تو موڑ دے اللہ اللہ تو میری سن لے صدا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير لب پہ رہے ذکر و دعا اور تجھ سے میں ڈرتا رہوں کر کے عمل कुरान पे जन्नत की राहों पे चलता रहूं खिदमत करूं इस्लाम की पछतावे का गम तोड़ दे अल्लाह अल्लाह तू मेरी सुन ले सदा حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير रोता रहा सजदों में जो दिल में लिए उम्मत का गम पढ़ता रहूं मैं तो फतन अपने नबी पे दुरूद हर कदम हो रूह जब तन से जुदा
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to News in Focus Live on Radio Al-Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Masberg 105.6 FM, and streaming on www.alansar.org.za. Before the news break, we were chatting with Samuel Kennedy on a couple of issues that are topical. One is the issue of Mkhwanazi inquest and updates. Then MK files motion of no confidence on Ramaphosa. What are the really underlying reasons for that? And then the status report on the function of the JNU. Samuel mentioned various issues, and he says from an economic perspective, it really hasn't benefited the country. I asked the question, is there an alternative to the JNU? And the answer appears to be no, especially from the ANC's perspective. The tariffs, the 1st August, that was for other reasons, not necessarily the JNU. In fact, John Steenhuisen went out and with the support of a few other individuals, he tried to convince Trump that, listen, South Africa is not as bad. Rupert also was indicating so. And the economic reaction, we noticed that the currency rand is gone to its lowest level for a long time. And the share index is almost reaching 100,000, which has never happened before. So our economist, Hassen Motala, is present, and he will unpack that a little bit further. But Samuel, I just want you to give us your comments relating to Mkhwanazi's request and an update, and how do you see this thing panning out? And MK files, what is the purpose of them filing this no confidence? They said it's not political, it's for other reasons, but obviously it would appear as though it's politically motivated.
Well, thank you, Yunus. Well, 58 seats out of 400, you want to file a motion of no confidence. Just numerically, rationally, logically, will you garner 201 seats in order to remove a sitting president? I don't think that's possible.
So what is the purpose?
The views and opinions expressed by the...
Sorry?
Are they making a statement?
Well, I think the MK is very clear. They've been very clear from the commencement of this 7th administration that their number one target is Cyril Ramaphosa. For reasons everybody knows, between former President Zuma and Cyril Ramaphosa.
It's his last term of office, both as the president of the ANC and the country. So he's obviously a dying breed, and he's preparing somebody that's complicit with him to take over. So maybe they're attacking that.
No, I think there's a number of issues. One is, let's call a spade a spade. Ramaphosa is complicit. There hasn't been adequate acceptable, reasonable, rational responses on Pala. That's number one. So even if he does leave and completes or fulfills his term, that will still be hanging over his head. the Pala matter, because
So if there's a new president that don't favor him, he may bring that up.
no, absolutely.
So he's going to prepare somebody that will protect him.
Well, that's if the ANC is still in government. Two, the issue with apart from Pala is CR17. There's a big, it's gone to court, it's gone to High Court, it's gone to Supreme Court of Appeal, where the EFF and now the MK are asking for who were the donors of CR17, and there's a lot of speculation. Some of it linked to Bidvest, some of it linked to Bosasa, some of it linked to a whole lot of people, where the allegations, Zuma made it public that he had bought his way, and in 2022, I think it is, he bought his way as well. So there's a lot of sort of Damocles hanging on his head. Whether the MK garners 201 seats to assist, I think they're aiming for, and it's a good strategy, they're aiming to split the ANC, because they know that half the ANC don't want Cyril. So that's the situation. But let me just say with MK, this is the issue I have with MK. I think they're the right noisemakers. I think the DA, its biggest mistake was to be government. They were better opposition. They appear to be enjoying the spoils of government, cabinet ministers, media exposure, prestige, power, status, and so consequentially, there isn't any opposition. With no disrespect to MK, I think MK is catching up with the new chief whip, Colleen Makubele. But South Africans want to see more dynamism, more opposition, not reading statements, more bold debates in terms of taking on the GNU, so to speak.
Now, I mentioned Steenhuisen is saying that the leader delivered us the 9 wasted years that we are currently trying to clean the mess up from.
But he's talking nonsense.
That leader now, it's a known fact, that leader now is saying, I'm going to clean up South Africa when you wasted 9 years with your cronies. Now, the people who are listening are saying, who caused the mess? Now, Ramaphosa, obviously being a capitalist, is trying to sort out a difficult situation. And obviously, South Africa cannot function on its own. They import, they export, and obviously with this tariff adjustment, it's having an impact on, as you said, jobs. A lot of people are going to lose jobs because America now is tightening. Whether, they deliberately doing it or not is another question. But Sam, before I bring in Hassen, because he's an economist, he's been studying the markets, whether the DA is a Zionist party or the enemy of the country, obviously their intention is to start cleaning up and have a better life for the people. We don't want to refer to Western Cape, because definitely Western Cape is way ahead of other provinces, whether we deny it or not. But I just want you to bring up an important part about the Mkhwanazi issue, because what is being reported now is that SAPs have been supporting political cadres and they're doing favors, and this is why nothing is being done about the maladministration, corruption. And we've seen videos coming through of these cops sitting in their offices eating KFC and building up bodies, and then other areas of government like the defense force, there's clips coming through that they don't even have a decent missile, and if somebody attacks South Africa, whether these guys got the strength and ability to defend. So we've got parties that are claiming corruption on the other side, yet they were part of the government and did nothing to improve. In fact, they caused it. Perhaps you just want to just relate to what we're talking about. In Mkhwanazi now, as a commissioner in KwaZulu-Natal, complaining about the state of security in South Africa, particularly in KZN, where Zuma's stronghold is. And on the other side, you've got MK demanding a vote of no confidence on Ramaphosa, yet the world has some kind of reliance on Ramaphosa. I'm giving you 5 minutes.
Yeah, can I just say the following? I I had to go and do a fika today, and I happened to bump into a retired, very senior, very, very senior police officer. Very senior. And he gave me, we got to know each other, and he gave me one example, which was just two days ago. SAPS launched a big, what do you call it, Hassen, when they swoop in Inanda. They hit the schools, they hit the taverns, 21st of the school opening, or 22nd, whatever it is. And guess what? They found Zippo, 0. Do you know why? Because the information was leaked that there's going to be a swoop. And who leaked the information? Who leaks information? If it's coming from the police department, who else is leaking it? It's guys that are linked in the police services to the underworld, right? It's happening the same in the Western Cape. It's happening in Gauteng. And it's happening in KZN, the 3 main centers of economic power in South Africa. You know, and I know that if you get stopped in a roadblock, you can, with no money talks, you can pay your way out, dockets get lost, blood stuff gets mislaid. Anything is possible in South Africa. And that's the sad state of affairs. So I want to say the following. John Steenhuisen is talking through both sides of his mouth. The 9 wasted years includes Cyril Ramaphosa. He was the deputy president of the Republic of South Africa. So the oxymoron is to say, on the one hand, Jacob Zuma is responsible for 9 wasted years, and on the other hand say, but his lieutenant is the guy who's delivering. I mean, it's nonsense. So to put everything into perspective, we have
when they asked Cyril that question, he says my hands were tied because this was ruling with the iron fist.
No, but he's talking nonsense.
And he said, and believe it, that if I did or uttered something in opposition, I would be sacked. So I had to go with it until such time they removed the soap.
So what he's saying indirectly is he was there for the position. He didn't want to be sacked.
Well, he was there to bring to the notice of the electorate, this is what your former president did. This is why he was removed from office before the expiry of his term of office. And, it was run in a mafia style. And, Zuma, suddenly he got up, he decided Pravin Gordhan is going on an economic trip to the UK. And there was some issue about SARS and, whatever was the problem there. And he called him back and he told him, you just reached there, come back. And he fired him. And you know what that did to the rand. And,
but didn't Cyril just do that 2 days ago?
No, but what I'm saying,
last week,
the point I'm making is we cannot justify the poor leadership of JZ. At the end of the day, whether Cyril is implicated is another issue, but depending on the circumstances. But what Mkhwanazi is saying is that this has been ongoing for a number of years, and whether he's a Zuma ally or not is another question. But he's now getting frustrated because he doesn't want to be implicated if there's problems in the police force that's discovered later. So I want you to wrap up because I want to bring Hassen in. Sam,
I appreciate it.
As far as you are concerned, you're saying that, listen, the various political parties have got their own challenges. The GNU is not what people think it is. The GNU hasn't been responsible for the improvement of the economy in the country as we speak. I want to bring in Hassen. Hassen, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. You heard Sam talking about the different issues from a different angle. I threw in a few red herrings in between. Now, and with this tariff adjustments, we spoke about it, it's impacting on jobs and some motor companies are closing down. But at the same time, you also have the weak rand, it impacts on the cost of living. The share indices overall impacts on the economy of the country. What's your take on the current situation? Because the last time you spoke to us, the all-share index was around 95,000. You said it's really shot up. But when I looked at the numbers recently, it's close to 98 or 99,000. So that's saying something. There's positive sentiment in the markets.
Sure.
And the rand, somebody told me it hit about 1740 today. Hassen, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to News in Focus.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I think, Yunus, let's look, for example, we'll start off globally and come back into the impact in terms of South Africa. So from an economic, from a market perspective, today the Aussie hit an all-time high of just over 100,000.
So you hit the 100,000
So
mark.
we find it that mental number or mental this thing, which was always the 100,000 mark, it closed
What
today.
was the reason
above.
for that reaction?
So I think it is just, you've seen even the S&P 500 yesterday hit an all-time high,
So
which
there's
is the
global
US market.
confidence.
So globally, you have seen stock markets across where US, UK, South Africa, and most major markets have had a very, very strong run over the last couple of weeks. Now, one would have thought, if we go back to April, when Donald Trump first announced those tariffs that he was going to implement and bring through across major countries, stock markets came under massive pressure for that few days. When he came out and he get guns blazing, he brought out his whole poster and he said, okay, this is the trade deficit between us and this country, and this is what we're going to implement. Markets were spooked, and you saw markets came under massive pressure. But this time round, which now we know that 90-day pause has sort of finished off now, and now there's talk about 1st of August. I think you see markets are anticipating that it's more a negotiation tactic, and you are seeing it. For example, we saw Japan settle this morning or last night at a 15% tariff. So now, and guess what? Japan settling at 15% tariff is fantastic for Toyota. It's much better for Toyota than the American producers of Ford, GM, and those killer producers, because Ford, GM, and those countries, when they are importing steel and copper into the country, they're importing it at 50% because that's what Trump wants to implement on copper and steel coming into America. Toyota, producing steel in the country and maybe importing it from China, all they have to do is experience a 15% tariff on the completed product. That's why Toyota's shares was up 15% in the past 2 days. So I don't think Trump is also, and his advisors have thought through a lot of the impact in terms of the US consumer and the US economy. That's one thing. Second thing, there's a term going on at the moment. They're calling it taco. Taco, we think about taco as what you call is, the Mexican food that we eat or whatever. The reason they're talking about it, it says, the abbreviation is for Trump always chickens out. So that's what the market is saying, that Trump goes gung-ho when he's got his wind and sails are behind him. But as soon as he faces a bit of headwinds, like last time, remember in April, China gave him a headwind. China said, no problem, you come, we'll come. You come, we'll come. And they played that game and they continued until Trump had to slowly back off after that. And then he gave the 90-day pause. So they're saying this is a negotiation. So I think everybody is expecting that there will be an increase in tariffs. Nobody's not expecting that. Previously, America had implemented largely a 3% tariff on all goods, most goods coming into the country. People are expecting it will settle anywhere between 10 to 15%. Majority of the major trading partners will be impacted by 10. Now, South Africa, on the other hand, he sent a letter last week to the president's office of the president, stating that so previously it said 34% in April. He said in this letter a 30% impact in terms of tariffs on all South African imports South African exports into the US. Now, I think you'll see in the next week or so whether they will get a deal done or not, I don't know. But I think there's definitely behind the scenes something going on where South Africa may end up settling at between 15 or maybe 20%. And they will try and get a deal done somewhere around that. But the important things to note, of our exports, 8% of our total exports goes to the US. 50% of that is made up of minerals and materials. So largely, particularly platinum PGM materials, iron ore, those type of materials are going into that. Those are still zero rated. So only the 4% of our exports, our total exports, is largely impacted. And the two key sectors that are largely impacted is the motor vehicle sector and the agricultural sector. Motor vehicles, because we're exporting a lot of our Mercedes-Benzes or BMWs are manufactured here, particularly certain lines, and are exported into the US. They will be impacted if that 30% tariff remains. And it is going to have an impact particularly on the Eastern Cape, as Samuel highlighted earlier. The second point is the agricultural sector. And I think here there will be some potential changes, or there's definitely going to be some, I think both areas, but definitely there will be some impact also on the agriculture. And the reason being is, if you look at oranges, one good example, citrus, it's one of the big exports from South Africa into the US. South Africa is the second largest exporter of oranges in the world after Spain. If you look at them exporting to the US, they export to the US not in their season. So they're not effectively competing with US orange producers. They're only competing with other Southern Hemisphere players. So Chile and Peru is a big competitor of South Africa in terms of exports to the US for oranges. Now, Chile and Peru have already got a trade deal with the US of 10%. So they've already settled at that. South Africa at 30% is definitely at a disadvantage. So it will, but there is some flexibility in terms of what you call is exports of agriculture, but it's not going to happen overnight. So in this first year, in this season year, if there's no change in terms of that export of 30% tariff on oranges and citrus, South African exporters are going to be impacted quite significantly on the agriculture side, particularly the citrus side. But I think what will happen over time is that production or harvest going forward, more of it will now start to be allocated to other countries like India and China. Those are big consumers of also citrus products. I mean, I was talking to one of the citrus exporters in our country last week, and he's talking about now, all of a sudden, Indian demand for our oranges has shot up in the last few weeks. And they're seeing the opportunity, if these tariffs remain, that South Africa could be a good market for them to import our oranges into their country. So the shorter term, if it remains at 30%, agriculture and motor vehicles are the most impacted in the country. And therefore, particularly the Eastern Cape and other areas of the country on the agricultural side will be impacted in the shorter term. But I don't think we must be completely negative in terms of how this impact will be. I think it is a negotiation. You can see it. I don't know if that I saw sort of a news announcement earlier before I got into the studio where they said that the EU is now looking at settling at 15% tariffs with the US. After also the argy-bargy was going on and they were last minute, it looks like now they're also settling in at around 15%. So I think hopefully, inshallah, we'll probably also settle around the 15% mark if we sort of our negotiations work out correctly. It obviously has an impact, but not as bad as what a 30% impact can be. And that's where our concern is, particularly for those two sectors.
Hassen, thanks for your input. We will catch up with you shortly.
Sure.
We have Honorary Member of Parliament Imran Subrathie live from Parliament on the line. Imran, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus Live on Radio Al-Ansar International.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Yunus, and greetings to yourself and to your listeners. It's so nice to again be with you this week.
Yeah, shukran for joining us. I know you had a tiring day. You just finished in Parliament. Now, we were discussing three topics. One was Mkhwanazi's inquest and update. MK files a motion of no confidence on Ramaphosa, and the state has reported the functioning of the GNU, and we went through some of the issues that have been raised, and I know many of the parliamentarians have been chatting about these issues. You just finished Parliament now, and I know you're on your way with the bus to your residence, which is at 20 to 10, so you're going to have a long night. Tell us, what was the sitting about today? I know they were talking about the appropriation bill, and they were expecting support from the DA, and there's been deals being cut. Perhaps just tell us what was today's sitting about and what was the outcome.
Yeah, no, thanks, Yunus. Once again, it's always a pleasure to join you. In fact, I just walked into my apartment here at Acacia Park. I just arrived now. So Parliament started at 10 a.m. this morning, and we finished at 9. It was probably one of the most important days in Parliament today. It was the approval of what we call the appropriations. Appropriation simplified is the various, we had to go through 42 various votes today. What happened earlier, the much talked about budget vote that we had, we had the V1 and V2, what happens, just so that people understand, that is more where the minister decides, how are we going to fund this budget? Big hoo-ha about, and that's where the whole VAT came in. The minister said, I think we should use VAT increase, and we managed to resolve that. Now that we've ascertained how we're going to fund this budget, now is the issue of around the various departments that constitute government, and these are various departments, from communications to police to education to health. Each of them, they make a claim for their share of that budget, of that big chunk. And today was the opportunity in which we went and and prior to that, what happened was in Parliament, we had 42 debates that took place. I was involved in 2 or 3 debates where each department now presents their plans for the year, their strategic intentions, and they come before us, the ministries, and they say, this is what we need, and this is why we need it, and we'll debate it, and we'll argue it, and then we'll support it, or we won't support it, as the case may be. But alhamdulillah, all votes were largely supported. And today was the day where the entire House sits. So though individual debates was what we call mini plenaries, today was the full sitting of the House. It is what we call in parliamentary terms a 3-line vote, meaning that every single member of Parliament must attend unless you're absolutely sick and there's really a compelling reason. Because today's vote is very important from a constitution point of view to approve. And therefore, we need warm bodies in the House to approve those 42 votes. And that took the entire day. Because for every vote, notwithstanding the fact that we managed to have majority through the GNU, the opposition party, largely the MKP and the EFF, constantly call for what we call division, meaning that you go and now you have to count votes. And that is why we needed warm bodies. So today, alhamdulillah, it was a very, very tiring day, very, very stressful day, but Allah shukr, we managed to approve all 42 votes were approved. It's a very significant day because had it not happened, there would have been huge, huge consequences. In fact, in the very first bill, the appropriations bill that Honorable Memani presented, that was the first one that we were very worried about. Once he was approved, then we went to the 42 different votes. I had to give a declaration in communications and digital technologies. And so that was what our day was all about. There was a lot of suspense leading up to it, whether we're going to get the support of our GNU partners, and that was consuming us heading up to this budget. It wasn't so much the votes, but it was more preparation. Sorry,
Imran, did you get the support from the GNU partners?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, the biggest GNU partner is the DA, as you can imagine. I mean, they had about 75 warm bodies in the House, and the ANC had about 145. We have 159 seats, excluding the president, who is the 160th person, but he's not a member of parliament. And maybe some of them were sick, etc. So we had about 145, 148. And the DA, which is a significant partner, so was there. So maybe just a little bit of the talks about, because I know in your poster you said the GNU. So the suspense around that, Yunus, was, the DA following the president's removing Andrew Whitfield as the deputy minister of in the Ministry of Trade or Industry. They basically threatened the president and said that if you don't dismiss certain ministers that they had issues with, such as, for example, the higher education minister, and I think the land affairs minister, human settlements minister, if you don't do that, then we're going to have issues and those types of things, and we're not going to vote, etc. So that was really an area of concern, because the implications of non-approval of this vote has significant consequences for the country. In that basically what it means is, if this wasn't approved, that means all that money that's sitting there that we need to provide service delivery to our people, whether it's COCTA, the money that needs to go out to the municipalities, no money can leave until this vote takes place. There is a small portion that will go out, but largely, by and large, service delivery, whether it's mistrust, bursary, whatever the case may be, that makes the wheels turn in the government, that can't go out unless today was achieved. So they had threatened us to really not support us, and then what was really concerning was last week on Wednesday was I mentioned earlier that we have budget vote debates in Parliament before today, and last week Wednesday was budget vote number one. Budget vote number one was the vote in the President, where President Cyril Ramaphosa himself came to Parliament and had to, like all executives, explain, this is how the budget, my presidency needs this money, this is what we're doing and what we're going to do, etc. And there was a whole lot of debate around that day, and various political parties would have debated, etc. But what was really noticeable was, and that's generally the most attended budget vote, because it's that of the presidency. And generally the debaters that take part would be ministers and deputy ministers. And what was really concerning was there was no DA ministers in the House when the president presented his budget vote. No ministers, no way they deputy ministers. And even for the next day, when the president then responded, because what happens, the president then responds to all the criticisms that were given on day one. Again, there was just one minister of forestries was there, but generally the ministers didn't come. And that silence from your GNU partners, not attending something like that, there's a telltale, and that was concerning to us. And I think we were quite concerned. I was really concerned, because I whip, one of my responsibility is a whip of the ANC in Parliament, and part of the whip's duty is to ensure that when we're going into Parliament, when we're going into votes, we have managed to get our people to be behind us. So when we go in to do the work of Parliament, we're able to achieve our end objective. And that was very unsettling. They're not coming in. I think what changed it, and I think there was a sort of admission, the president made a change. He removed Minister of Higher Education yesterday, and the new deputy minister became the minister, and the former premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Dr. Became the deputy minister. So there was a change, and I think that was probably a very strategic move by the president, in that he made the change. And today, alhamdulillah, so I think it all went well. But again, last week I was sitting with one of the very senior members, and he was going through the whole list with me. He says, Imran, if those guys don't come, then this is what we're going to have to do. It would have been really down to the wire. Literally, if the DA didn't come, we would have been really a difference of 10 votes either way. It could go. We'd probably go our way, but 10 votes is very small line. But alhamdulillah, it all came through. So there was a lot of suspense, and given the fact that so we managed to overcome that impasse. And I don't think the DA is going to want to leave the GNU. I think for them it's an opportunity to really have a seat at the table. Yunus, is very important. I always say to people, when you have a seat at a table, no matter how at a critical table, no matter how difficult things get, don't walk away, because that seat at the table gives you an opportunity to input and make the changes. And then maybe, you've always been talking about political advocacy and getting involved. And that's why I say to people, what, guys, our entire lives, we think politics is bad. It shouldn't be a place. But I always say that's where the decisions are made. Like today, that's where decisions were made. If you're not sitting around the table, you're not going to be part of the solution. So I don't think the DA is going to give up anything. They're not going to walk away. And I think what's important, and maybe we'll move on, is what's important is, I think I learned this in my small journey. Parliament cannot be a theatre. And I think, unfortunately, the party is known to be theatrics. Andrew Woodfield was nothing extraordinary. President Nelson Mandela, I mean, yes, he dismissed his own wife. because she had taken an overseas trip. And there was in the history of politics, there was another member of the ANC that was dismissed because he traveled overseas. So Andrew Whitfield was nothing extraordinary. It was just following the protocol. But you can't keep having a theaterizing. We need to put the country first. We need to put the people first. We can't use these as a theater. So that's what I learned today, because ultimately everyone came together, because nobody's going to walk away from the table. It's too valuable. So yeah, that was what was all the suspense about, but it all ended well today.
Yeah, it's in line on what we were discussing about the GNU, the performance. Hassen spoke about, the economic impact. Now, last week in the show, you mentioned that the Speaker of Parliament had referred the Mkhwanazi matter to the portfolio committees for processing any feedback, because we did look at reports that are coming through. It's going to be an investigation taking place, and outcomes of that, that commission of inquiry into this thing will then determine which way they go. In the meanwhile, the Minister of Police has taken leave for a couple of weeks. Gwedi Mantashe is acting. What impact he's going to make is questionable, but then Firoz Kichalia comes in. So any feedback on the situation, just for the benefit of our listeners?
Yeah, I think just two things. Let me just quickly, something that I learned today, and I think it's useful just to share with your listeners, is that the President's Commission of Inquiry is very, very crucial, because the allegations made by General Mkhwanazi cut across judicial, it cuts across the judges, magistrates, it cuts across executives, where he's implicated the Minister of Police, and he's mentioned also there may be MPs, etc. So it's cut across all what we call three spheres of government, both across the legislative, executive, and judiciary. So the President's choice of taking a judge who will be retiring soon and placing him as the chairperson of that judicial commission that oversees and cuts across all three, I think was a very prudent decision. And what's important about that, that will amass a lot of evidence that can then be used in courts of. So that is the first point I wanted to just to deposit. So last week I mentioned that the Speaker had given direction to two portfolio committees, and I think I indicated a third one. But the third portfolio committee decided, that is the Standing Committee on Intelligence, they decided not to be part of this one here. So the two committees that took an instruction from the Speaker was the Portfolio Committee on Police and the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Constitutional Development. So since the time that emanated to now, they have been meeting, and they've come up with a plan of action. And today, alhamdulillah, the last order of the day, and I was hoping it would have been dealt sooner. The last order of the day was a report by this joint portfolio committee of police and justice, and a debate around that. And this and the results of it. And the result of what was decided upon was to establish what we call a parliamentary ad hoc committee, which will deal, and the difference between an ad hoc committee and a joint committee is a joint committee has a longer life. An ad hoc committee will only exist for the period and duration of the issue on hand. And that is, the resolution was passed to establish this ad hoc committee comprising of 11 parliament MPs from these two committees. They will comprise, I think, of 4 ANC, 2 DA, 2 MK, 1 EFF, and 2 from the smaller parties. So an 11-member committee, they will have a 3-month time frame, and their job would be to do a deep dive and interrogate what is going on in terms of the allegations made by General Mkhwanazi, and within 3 months report back. I think we've given them till 31st of October to come back to Parliament with their presentation and their findings. So that is the progress that we've made. So alhamdulillah, that was the last order of the day. That was the motion that the African National Congress brought to Parliament, and that was unanimously adopted. So now we have an 11-man ad hoc committee established by Parliament that will take a deep dive into the allegations made by General Mkhwanazi with a feedback time of by the 31st of October. So that would also the question would ask is it's very focused, it's a smart goal, it's specific, measurable, time driven. In 3 months' time, we'll understand from them. And also, obviously, there will be certain cut acrosses as well. There will be information that will be shared between the Judicial Commission. The Judicial Commission is a more medium to long term, at least 6 months. It could go on beyond 6 months. But the ad hoc committee will report back to Parliament in 3 months' time.
Thanks for that input. Imran, we're running out of time. Just one final question. The ANC will be hosting a litigation from the Palestinian government. Tell us about the reasons for their visit and how can the public expect to engage them? Because I know they will be, in Johannesburg and other areas, but on the 28th, they will be in Durban, and Al-Ansar Foundation, together with United for Palestine, will be hosting them, at our hall at 207 West Road. But also they will be at the ANC offices on Monday afternoon. So can you tell us more about this visit by the Palestinians and exactly what was the purpose of the visit and how can the public engage with them?
Well, obviously, as you and your listeners know, that the ANC as a liberation movement has had relationships with liberation movements and governments around the world. It's a bilateral relationship the ANC has as a political party. So similarly with the Palestinian government, we have a long-standing relationship dating back to many, many years. So the whole idea behind this visit is it's a visit by them to come to South Africa, and the understanding that I've been given by the head of the international relations of the African National Congress in Luthuli House. I think they're coming here to really kind of like appreciate what South Africa has done in terms of going to ICJ. That is one of the main objectives is to come down here. And I think more importantly from our point of view and from ANC, and I think from the solidarity and from Al-Ansar, and that's where is to really, I think, reimagine the future of Palestine, Yunus. And that's where I see the significant amount of potential. We need to be able to, one thing is for sure, is that the Palestinians must decide how they want to run their country. But I think South Africa as an ally, as a friend, as a partner of good standing and a well-respected government that managed to keep it right, even despite losing the majority vote, the ANC has still managed to put together a GNU. The idea behind it is really to share from our experience with them that how do we think you should put this together, because you must understand in the Palestinian, there has to be a resolution, inshallah, of this whole genocide has to come to an end. And we need to have a critical conversation of how we imagine the future. And also to find out from them that, what are the problems, what are the challenges, and how can we as a country, as a people, really get to know from them grassroots what's going on there. And how can we, if you're part of government, tell us what's going on. Why is the food not coming in? What can we do? So this is an opportunity for engagement. This is an opportunity for us to ask the right questions. And also it's an opportunity for us to tell them that, listen, guys, this is what I think you should be doing right. This is where I think you guys are not doing well. This is what I think we think as South Africans you should be doing. It shouldn't just be exclusively one party. Like all countries, there's diversity. There must be social cohesion. There must be representation. So it's really an opportunity to input and to provide guidance, leadership in terms of what we think should take place from our example, and also to really engage them what's going on at the grassroots, and to remove some of the concerns that we may have about, why is, I mean, let's face it, Yunus, it's getting back to worse. I mean, now I believe I'm getting messages coming in where now people are dying of starvation. So the genocided state has reached its objective of using food as a weapon of mass destruction. People are now dying of starvation. I saw one post that came to me about the stages of starvation, and the final stages, Palestinians have reached the final stages of starvation. And that is why that is what compelled us, one of the reasons why United for Palestine in this week also wrote up to the president to tell him that, we need to do something. We can't promise anything. And what's important for us always, Yunus, is we must just do what's within our means. That's what isn't within our control, is what our hands can allow us to do. And maybe it's useful just to reflect and appreciate last week, as I mentioned, when the president was doing his budget vote. The president acknowledged when he presented the vote, he acknowledged the challenges that we as a country are facing due to our, what sanctions the Americans have imposed, particularly around the AIDS, withdrawal of the AIDS funding. We are really struggling. He acknowledged that. And he also acknowledged the fact that the export tariffs increased to 30% is also an impact. And he acknowledged that. But Alhamdulillah, our President Ramaphosa, after acknowledging the challenges we have, he was not shy to spend at least 4 to 5 lines of his speech dedicated to Palestine, that South Africa remains resolute in its support of the people of Palestine, in its ICJ case. And in fact, he said, I'm paraphrasing, he said, shame upon those international leaders that are watching a genocide unfolding and are not responding to it. So our president, alhamdulillah, continues to stand by the people of Palestine. And also what's important, I hope I get the city right, Bologna, I think it's called, in Colombia, where the Hague Group met, and 12 countries took a decision, a 6-point plan, to really start to do something about ending this genocide. That includes, amongst other things, looking at the bilateral relations, diplomatic ties, trade sanctions, international lobbying. And South Africa, again, together with Colombia, are signatories to that. And that has a 6-point plan. So we felt, given the fact that the president has endorsed and supporting the people of Palestine, alhamdulillah, and given the fact that the Hague Group has come up with the 6-point plan with South Africa as a signatory to it, with other 12 countries, let us now reach out to the government to say, listen, guys, please help the people of Palestine, whether it is diplomatic sanctions, trade sanctions, let's start somewhere, let's squeeze, because that is what ultimately led to the emancipation of South Africans from the clutches of apartheid. That's what's ultimately the international sanctions, the diplomatic isolation, etc., whether it was all types of sanctions and isolation, ultimately made the apartheid rulers of this country realize that this is not sustainable. We believe that now is the time for South Africa to lead an international charge to help the people of Palestine through means that really affects people, and that is through sanctions, through diplomatic ties, etc. So yeah, that is what we also did as United Palestine. But again, Yunus, let me invite all your listeners on Monday to Radio Al Ansar at 6 p.m. We will be having a public engagement with this Palestinian government delegation that's down. During the day, we will be engaging with them within the ANC. We will be having engagements with students as well. But in the evening, the opportunity of the public to engage with them, to come through, and really, as I said, let's find solutions. Let's engage, because we have to speak to all parties. Because ultimately, in any solution, all parties must be part of the solution. So I'm really inviting everybody from Radio Al Ansar, and I know Al Ansar is our partner. So I'm sure, Yunus, you will be also inviting our listeners next week, Monday. I think it's the 28th, inshallah, at 6 p.m. at the Al Ansar Hall.
So yeah, there you are. I think Imran has mentioned that there's an opportunity to engage with the comrades from Palestine. We will give us first-hand information on what's happening and what support they need and how they're going to have this breakthrough. It's going to be at the Al Ansar Convention Center, 207 West Road. There are posters that are out on social media. We will be announcing on radio, today, tomorrow, giving details. And we hope we get a good response coming through at 6 p.m. next Monday. Inshallah, it'll be a beneficial engagement with these Palestinian parliamentarians that are coming through. Imran, shukran for updating us on various information. I know you're tired. You had a long session in Parliament, and as usual, you always respond to our invitations. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the strength to continue with the good work you're doing and joining us. And enjoy the rest of the evening and get fresh for tomorrow's meeting. I'm sure you'll be back in Durban soon. And join us on Monday to meet these Palestinians, both midday at the ANC offices and subsequently in the evening at Al Ansar Convention Center. Shukran, Imran, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah, Yunus. Thank you also for having me on your show.
That's a pleasure. That was Honorary MP Imran Subrathie, who's given us an update directly from the horse's mouth in Parliament, responding to some of the issues of our subject for this evening. Hassen, sorry I disrupted you. We got about 10 minutes. We're going to steal into overtime now. Basically, you were talking about the economic impact, and you were summing up on exactly, is the GNU beneficial for South Africa? And is there positive sentiment? Sameul seems to believe otherwise, but can you continue with that brief discussion? You got another 5 minutes here to wrap up, Hassen.
Sure. So look, obviously in terms of from the tariffs impact, highlighted where the key issues are. Two sectors in particular will be impacted if it remains around the 30% mark. The feeling is that I think we will negotiate it. Hopefully, we'll get an opportunity to negotiate it lower and probably settle around the 15% level as well. In terms of South Africa, where we currently, if you look at the last few weeks or so, there's been company results coming out. There's been some economic updates. From the company results perspective, Mr. Price came out the other day. You had one or two of the other retailers, and there's been some of the banks and the like that also have been giving some updates. In fact, Sacoor also gave an update as well. The retailers are doing pretty okay. Things are tough, but they're doing still relatively well. They're still showing reasonable growth in terms of profitability, and they're still showing some top line growth. But the environment is tough. It's not free flowing. You've seen inflation numbers come out today. Came out at 3%. So 3% is still at the bottom end in terms of the range of 3 to 6%, which is highlighting that there's still no cause for concern in terms of inflationary impact coming through strongly, and therefore the potential to raise interest rates. Remember, the last decision we saw was that the Reserve Bank governor had cut rates to 7.25%. I think we probably they'll be on hold now for a period of time until there's a bit more clarity in terms of where we see inflation going through as well. But I think there are definitely challenges in certain sectors. I highlighted two of them. I think in terms of the public sector, and that's why, remember, we're seeing at the moment also there was public sector wage negotiations that took place. They settled at was it Transnet at way above inflation. Now that is going to be putting a bit of pressure again in terms of the government finances and funding, and that remains one of the big challenges for us. Still remains our ability to control our debt levels, so that we can spend on more appropriate stuff. Now we're dependent on SARS trying to recoup a bit more money to help us in terms of our budget deficit as well. Another key aspect, and it's playing out now with what's happened now with General Mkhwanazi and the like, is the issues around corruption and the like. I mean, just yesterday now, the 4 suspects arrested for DJ somebody's murder. But there was a politician one of the politicians that are sitting in the house of one of the suspects that's arrested. There's so much of interlink, and General Mkhwanazi had highlighted, and one of the key aspects he highlighted in his revelations was the talk about the drug cartels that are operating from Gauteng and how significant and substantial they are. Daily Maverick did a piece on it to talk about how big the cartels in terms of operating from South America, getting it into this country and being used to distribute it locally and offshore. That's just one aspect in terms of, unfortunately, the lawlessness has led to many mafia type of areas prevailing to many areas of this country. And that remains a challenge. But how this plays out in terms of General Mkhwanazi and this inquiry, it'll be interesting to see over the next couple of months. Auditor General highlighted one thing, and we've been talking about the Auditor General's focus on the municipalities and the like. She highlighted that in the last 5 years, she's recovered 4.5 billion rands in terms of some of the irregular expenditure that was this. But it's obviously still a drop in the ocean compared to. But the fact is, she's talking about wanting to go after more and more of the irregular expenditure and try and recover more of that. So hopefully we see more of that coming through. You've seen now also the suspension of one of the senior NPA prosecutors in Gauteng, Andre Chauke, that took place yesterday. This is the same person who Shamila Botoy 2 years ago had recommended that to be suspended. Only now, going back to the point of our current president also being sometimes too delayed and too, engaging with too many people before making decisions. 2 years to make a decision when your head of the NPA told you to go about and now only to do it was too long. So I think we're going into, a period of there is going to be some volatility, both from a global perspective, but also locally, as things pan out with these inquiries and these things around the General Mkhwanazi and Senzo Mchunu, and then also some of the, senior prosecutors. There is going to be potentially leading up to next year's elections on the local side. We are going to face a period of some increased volatility, I think, during that period.
Sam, I want you to conclude. We're running out of time, but I want to just bring to the attention of our listeners that you had some concerns that GNU may not be achieving the objective, what was expected of them. Obviously, what was reported from Subrathie in Parliament and now Hassen is that there is some positive sentiment because the DA, as a senior or a major partner in the GNU, is calling for corruption to be dealt with, people to be prosecuted, improving service delivery, accountability, and that's linking up to people being prosecuted, suspended. Mkhwanazi is waking up. Do you see, light at the end of the tunnel, or as you mentioned earlier, it's going to get progressively worse? You got 5 minutes to wrap up, Sam.
I think it would be, thanks, Yunus. I think it would be amiss not to champion positivity. And so the positive aspects are job creation, reduction in unemployment, the tightening of government to reduce corruption, better services in particular. I don't think we're there. I don't think we have the capacity. I don't think we have the will. I think the DA is known from DP days. They want to cling to power. Remember, the DA is a national party in blue. John Steenhuisen comes from the National Party. And so it's a reminiscing of old, of wanting to be there so that you, and it's a good thing in certain aspects. There's nothing, and this is where I disagree with Subrathie. There's nothing when he talks about theatrics. Anywhere around the world, in progressive countries and autocratic countries, to a point, robust debate is the essence of open, transparent democracy. We've got to allow it. And so when a party doesn't want to take criticism, it wants to be patted on the shoulder all the time, it says that something's wrong. The issue with Mkhwanazi is a semblance of the root. In other words, a little seedling that's popping up from the ground of all the stuff happening underground. We don't have a monitoring institution, Chapter 9, that can independently, like a Chapter 9, which is a public protector. The public protector is weak. We need a Chapter 9 constitutional oversight of the executive, which we don't have. And that is firstly, that will solve the problem. Two, the governor of the Reserve Bank, Hassen didn't touch on it, but he could do it the next time. And so I'll just present it so that he can follow it up the next time we meet. Inflation targeting. Hassen just said now that in the month of July or June, the inflation rate has crept up to 3%. It used to be 2.8% in May. When you put a policy of inflation targeting, Lekhanyawo is saying we want inflation targeting to be between 1 and 3%. And if we do that, we'll save more money because you won't be able to have all these repetitive slowdowns, because that's what interest rates are about, to slow the economy down, to slow the spending, not the economy. South Africa needs to have a new revised inflation target policy, inflation target. 3, Durban, I think, has hundreds of informal settlements. Ish Pralad was here. That was the biggest gripe of ERA. It's the biggest gripe of the civic associations around Durban and Gauteng and Cape Town. We don't have a plan to deal with housing. We don't have a plan to deal with unemployment. We don't have a plan. Unemployment is increasing. We don't have a plan to deal with government debt. It's costing this government, and Hassen can talk about next time, over 1 billion rand a day in interest. Forget about what we owe. And every time the rand depreciates, our number goes up. So what I'm saying is the national dialogue is not the answer. It's not the silver bullet to South Africa's problem. The silver bullet to South Africa's problem is us. Number one, and it's not a political statement. You cannot have a one-party state. 2, the GNU is not working because it's like an entity of contrast. You want to be in government, but you want to argue with government. Be in government so that we can change things, right? But let me just say this, and Hassen made a very critical point about citrus. If you go to the Western Cape, 1.8 billion USD export, and go and find out. You see, there's always stats in stats. I did stats at a master's level, so I know what I'm talking about. The economic indicators of ownership of citrus in the Western Cape is over 80 to 90% white. No dark-skinned people are owners of farms and the production, including capital, means of production. None. And so, we can clap and say job this, that. We don't own that economy. We don't own it. The money goes to a certain race group. Our people get nothing. That's the bottom line. 2, Hassen didn't raise it, and I'll raise it. Aluminium out of Pietermaritzburg. Their biggest destination is Europe and the USA. They've been slapped. If you look at Donald Trump's tariff letter, one of them is aluminium, right? And aluminium in Maritzburg, half an hour, 45 minutes from here. Go and find out. They say a lot of stuff, but they don't do as much as they should be doing for the black community. And when I talk about black, I'm talking about colored, Indian, and African. And hence I'm saying the ANC is tasked with 5 points, and I'm closing with this. The NWC. They think they run the government, but they don't. Because as Subrathie quite rightly says, they needed the DA to get the appropriations bill passed. So they're living also in this little era of reminiscing where they were so used to power, like the DA, they'll do anything to hold power and get back into power. It's called prestige and status. The ANC is faced with 5 challenges. One of them is, and I'll take the worst first, if we continue having issues with the DA, then we might have to have new elections, what they call fresh elections. Alternatively, we'll need to have a minority government, meaning 40% government made up of everybody else, that when you vote on how you persuade. 3, continuing with the DA, but massaging them. before bombing the DA and bringing MK in, which the DA are rabble rousers, not rabble rousers per se, but they have this, that if there's a black government only, this country will collapse, which is nonsense. So South Africa is at a crossroads, and our people, all our people, black and white, colored and Indian, and let me say this as well, Pakistanis are a big community in South Africa, and so are the Greeks, right? We need to have a consensus of how to arrest the challenges economically, socially, to get more houses, because squatter settlements are growing by the day. Durban, Yunus, you're an expert on housing. They're not even building 20,000 houses at the moment per annum. I think they've gone on to about 13,000.
No, not even 5,000.
Not even 5,000. And you know what the housing list is? Just for Durban.
Over 200,000.
Yeah. So when do you think they're going to get to that?
They won't get anywhere near that.
Exactly.
The municipality is a hopeless failure.
Absolutely. So I'm saying to South Africans, particularly to the listeners, two things. One, write in, engage. It's called interactive engagement. Don't be scared. Write in and say, these are the concerns. I might be wrong, but I need your guidance. Two, let's find cohesion and do what is good for this country. Forget about Donald Trump. Forget about Japan. Forget about this. We must find our own solution, and that's what we need to do. Thank you very much, and good night.
Thanks for those comments, Sam. I think we had a robust discussion on the subjects of the day. And end of the day, the listener needs to decide, is the GNU working? If not, what is the alternative? They don't seem to be an alternative, because MK, being one of the key oppositions with a large amount of votes, were part of the ANC, and then they created a mess. Alternatively, the DA, for the first time in 30 years of democracy, are part of government. In KZN, IFP and the DA are controlling the KZN legislature, and they're cracking down on corruption and getting the municipalities to be on their toes. Hopefully, eThekwini must start looking at service delivery before elections, and ensure all the challenges that the municipalities are facing are dealt with. There's no quick fix solution. At the moment, the government was of the opinion that the GNU will sort the problems out. They're dealing with the challenges as indicated by Imran Subrathie. And the DA is holding the ANC accountable, and then through their threats, getting the ANC to deal with certain ministers that are corrupt and not performing, and more will follow. So all in all, I think we need to play a waiting game and hope for the best. From a religious perspective, the religious leaders are confident that South Africa belongs to all that live in, not only Africans, Indian, colors, or white. The Africans may be in a majority, but one of the citizens, like everybody else, is equal rights. And we are hopeful that the people that can deliver will be given the necessary recognition to deliver, whether it's from a work point of view, from a service provider point of view. And as soon as South Africa gets into that level of appointments, we will see improvement in service delivery. The issue of what the religious leaders are expected to do is, pray for the country, pray that our leadership realizes that enough is enough. We've got a serious problem with poverty in this country. We've got a serious problem with unemployment, as was pointed out. The numbers are around 34-35% and on the increase. And the youth are really impacted. More than 40% of the youth are unemployed. And the cost of living is going up. And with the grants that a large amount of people are receiving, it wouldn't even take care of 20% of the expenditure. So this is where the NGOs and the charitable organizations are trying to fill the gap through donations and assisting our people. And I've seen it firsthand with the Al Ansar Foundation that, we spend a large amount of funding that we get to assist people. More than about 5 million is being spent on assisting kids that cannot afford education. And these are disabled kids and also slow learners. And, I know the schools that we are involved with. And then we're dealing with people that cannot afford basic necessities like paying their utilities, paying their rental, electricity. And then, those people that require support like hampers and bread. The lady, Halima, spoke earlier on the program about the issue of bread for individuals and milk and indeed water. So basic necessities are being provided by NGOs, and that is what's sustaining our poor communities out there. So we conclude this program by praying that the Almighty guides our leaders, assist not only our country but other people suffering in Africa and throughout the world. We know the situation in Palestine. Subrathie spoke about it. It's getting bad to worse, and the Zionists are indiscriminate in the genocide. We make du'as that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assist the people who are facing these hardships in those areas. And from an individual perspective, we have to do what we have to do our donations, do our own obedience to the commandments of Almighty Allah as shown to us by the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. On that note, it's 20 past 10 or 25 past 10 now, and we've ran over our time by almost 25 minutes because we had an interesting discussion. But inshallah, we'll continue with these discussions to keep our communities updated. This is one of the shows on Wednesday that goes on till quite late together with Nightline. So we trust and hope that our listeners enjoyed and they stayed awake to listen to the show because we look forward to presenting it to you. And we also thank our guest, Hassen Motala, a chartered accountant. He's got a lot of other things to do, but he wants to disseminate information. Same with Sameul Kennedy. He's quite knowledgeable. He provided us a lot of options, a lot of critical options, because until you're not critical and ask questions, we won't get people to change. So we thank Sameul and Imran Subrathie. He's a new member in Parliament. He's always available to give us valuable information. And we thank you, the listener, for listening to us, and our technician who's provided a phenomenal service today, Brother Dawood Monley. Monley, shukran for joining us and providing us with some nice nasheeds. Until next Wednesday, once again, News in Focus. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us all well, keep us healthy, enable our people to sustain themselves. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.